In this video, we will be discussing production theory and how a single input can affect our quantity produced. So, we're given a function of Q equals 300 plus 250L minus 50L squared, where L is our labor and Q is our quantity, and we are asked to find the marginal production of labor, as well as finding the production maximizing labor and quantity. So, first off, what we want to do is find our marginal production of labor, which is the derivative of the quantity function with respect to labor. And if we take its derivative, we're left with 250 minus 100L. So we have answered the first question already. So if we want to find our production maximizing labor, what we can assume is that the rate of change, or the marginal production of labor, equals 0 at the production maximizing point. So what we can do is have 250 minus 100 L equals 0. And if we were to add 100 L to both sides, we are left with 250 equals 100 L. And then if we divide by 100, L equals 2.5. And if we want to find our maximum quantity, all we have to do is take our quantity function and plug in 2.5 for L. So we have 300 plus 250 times 2.5 minus 50 times 2.5 squared. And so that gives us our maximum quantity of 612.5. And now we have found our maximum quantity. That will conclude this video on single input production. Please watch part 2 as we will discuss two input production and solving for the maximum quantity we can produce given these two inputs.